Listen carefully, because the moment you truly accept what I am about to tell you, the version of your specific person that ignored you, doubted you, or walked away from you begins to disappear. And a new version, a version drawn irresistibly back to you, must appear. Not because you forced them, but because consciousness has no choice but to mirror what you believe yourself to be. There is a power within you greater than circumstances, silence, distance, or rejection. And the moment you assume you are already loved, chosen, and wanted, the outer world begins reshaping itself to reflect that assumption. Tonight, you are no longer chasing love. You are becoming the one love rushes back to. You must begin to understand this mystery, for it is the very foundation of every relationship you have ever experienced in this world. The person you long for is not separate from your awareness of them. They appear separate. They seem to possess a will entirely their own. Yet the version of them that shows up in your life is deeply tied to the assumptions you continuously hold within yourself. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you accept as true. And so, if day after day you continue saying within yourself, they no longer care about me, they have moved on, they have forgotten me, then you are unknowingly giving life to that very version of them. You are clothing them in indifference with your own imagination. You are assigning them a role and then grieving when they perform it. Do you not see? The outer world has no choice but to echo the inner conversation you repeatedly entertain. Most people spend their days watching the world, reacting to appearances, reacting to silence, reacting to circumstances. And then they wonder why nothing changes. But the world is only a mirror. A mirror cannot change first. The face before it must change first. So I ask you now, what version of this person have you been carrying in consciousness? Have you been seeing them as distant, cold, uncertain, unavailable? Then that is the mask they continue to wear before you. But the very moment you dare to change the assumption, everything begins to shift. Not because you manipulated another human being, but because consciousness itself has changed direction. Suppose tonight you stopped repeating the old story. Suppose you no longer said, I've lost them. Suppose instead you began to claim inwardly, they cannot stop thinking about me. They feel my presence everywhere. Something within them is pulling them back to me more strongly every single day. At first, the mind may resist it. The outer world may still appear unchanged. But do not return to appearances for validation. The seed does not become a tree the moment it is planted, and yet the moment it enters the soil, its growth has already begun. The unseen always precedes the seen. You must learn to trust the invisible movement taking place within consciousness. For reality is not being shaped by what you see now. It is being shaped by what you persist in feeling to be true. If you persist in abandonment, you will meet abandonment. If you persist in rejection, you will meet rejection. But if you persist in being deeply desired, remembered, chosen, and loved, then reality must eventually harden around that belief. This is why you must stop placing your specific person on a pedestal above you, as though they possess a power separate from your own being. The moment you fear them losing interest, you unknowingly worship their free will more than your own consciousness. And what happens? Fear begins creating the experience. You notice delays, distance, silence, not because love disappeared, but because your attention became fixed upon loss. Attention is creative. What you emotionally dwell upon, you sustain. So instead of waking each morning asking, why haven't they reached out? Begin asking, what would the version of me who is already loved feel right now? That question changes everything. For the loved version of you does not panic. They do not chase. They do not beg the world for reassurance. They rest in the quiet confidence that they are unforgettable. And when you become inwardly convinced that you are unforgettable, the world begins arranging people and circumstances to reflect that conviction back to you. You may not see movement immediately, yet beneath the surface, hearts begin shifting. Thoughts begin changing. Bridges of incidents begin forming in ways you cannot yet understand. Suddenly they think of you at odd hours. Suddenly your name crosses their mind repeatedly. Suddenly memories return with emotion attached to them. Suddenly they feel compelled to reach out, even if they cannot explain why. And all of it began the moment you stopped seeing them as separate from your consciousness and started understanding that the world forever reflects the story you dare to believe about yourself and others. And this is why your entire life begins to change the moment you stop seeking confirmation from the outer world and begin giving it to yourself inwardly. For as long as you believe another person must choose you, before you can feel valuable, you remain trapped in dependence upon shadows. You hand your power over to appearances, waiting anxiously for a message, a phone call, a sign, some small gesture that tells you that you are finally worthy of love. But worthiness was never meant to come from another person. It was meant to come from your own awareness of being. You must understand this deeply, because most people attempt to manifest love while internally feeling abandoned. They affirm love with their words while secretly identifying with rejection in their feeling. And feeling is always the secret movement behind manifestation. A man may say all day long, "They love me," but if beneath those words he feels unwanted, ignored, or insecure, then the feeling overpowers the words. The subconscious does not respond to empty phrases. It responds to conviction. It responds to identity. So the question is never, how do I make them choose me? The question is, can I feel chosen now before the world gives me evidence? That is the test of consciousness. Can you sit alone in your room and still feel adored? Can you walk through your day carrying the quiet confidence of someone who is deeply loved? Can you look at yourself and say inwardly, "I am unforgettable. I am precious. I am the kind of person people naturally cherish"? For when you begin to feel this as natural, something extraordinary happens. You stop chasing love, and love begins chasing you. The outer world is forever responding to who you believe yourself to be. Not occasionally, not sometimes, always. If you identify as the one who is overlooked, reality faithfully mirrors that identity. If you identify as the one who is always abandoned, reality arranges circumstances to confirm it. But when you begin identifying as the one who is deeply prioritized, valued, pursued, and adored, the mirror must change accordingly. You need not force the reflection. You only change the face before the mirror. Many people spend years trying to manipulate another person's behavior. They watch videos endlessly asking, "How can I make them text me? How can I make them miss me? How can I make them regret losing me?" But all such questions are rooted in fear and separation. You are not here to force affection from another being. You are here to awaken to the truth that your assumptions determine the version of reality you experience. And so, instead of longing desperately for a text message, imagine already being the person who receives loving messages constantly. Instead of aching for an apology, become inwardly convinced that you are so valuable that reconciliation unfolds naturally around you. Do not merely repeat affirmations mechanically. Feel the relief of already being loved. Feel the security of already being chosen. That feeling is creative power. You must become emotionally familiar with the state you desire. Just as a wealthy man feels naturally secure about money, the loved version of you feels naturally secure about affection. There is no strain in it, no desperation, no constant questioning, only quiet knowing. And when this knowing stabilizes within you, your specific person begins responding to a different version of you entirely. Without effort, they begin noticing you different. Without force, they feel drawn toward you. Without planning it consciously, they begin reflecting the love and attention you first generated within yourself. For the world cannot continue presenting you with rejection once rejection is no longer present in your consciousness. You see, people think manifestation is about changing another person, but no, it is about changing self. And the moment self changes, the world rearranges itself with astonishing precision. You become radiant without trying, magnetic without effort, memorable without chasing. Not because you learned some technique to control another mind, but because you finally accepted yourself as someone worthy of extraordinary love. And once that acceptance hardens into conviction, reality begins moving around you as though responding to an invisible command, bringing forth experiences that mirror the love you first dared to feel within your own being. Now, when a person begins to feel worthy within themselves, a strange thing happens. The circumstances that once terrified them begin losing their power. The silence no longer feels final. The distance no longer feels permanent. Even the past itself begins to loosen its grip upon the mind. For you finally realize that circumstances were never the cause of your reality. They were only the result of old states of consciousness. But man continually reverses this truth. He looks at appearances first, and then allows appearances to determine his inner state. If the person has not called, he feels unloved. If there has been separation, he feels rejected. If harsh words were spoken, he assumes the relationship is broken beyond repair. And so he keeps recreating the very condition he fears. You must never judge your future by the evidence of the present moment. The present moment is only the outpicturing of previous assumptions. It is old news. It is yesterday's consciousness made visible. Suppose a man plants a seed in the earth. Would he dig it up every morning asking, why has it not appeared yet? No, he understands that there is an unseen interval between planting and harvest. Yet when it comes to love, people become impatient. They affirm for 1 hour and then spend the next 10 hours staring at circumstances, searching for proof that something is happening. But the outer world moves according to inner conviction, not human impatience. And so I tell you, stop being hypnotized by appearances. It does not matter if they said they never want to speak to you again. It does not matter if there has been months of silence. It does not matter if another person seems involved. It does not matter if everything in the visible world appears opposite to your desire. Why? Because every circumstance can change when consciousness changes. The world is not fixed. People are not fixed. Reality itself is fluid, constantly reshaping itself according to the state you occupy. What most call facts are only temporary shadows cast by previous thoughts and feelings. But shadows possess no creative power of their own. They can only reflect the form standing before the light. If you continue reacting emotionally to unwanted circumstances, you keep feeding life into that. Tension sustains reality. Fear sustains delay. Desperation sustains separation. And this is why you must become inwardly disciplined. When the outer world presents silence, you do not surrender internally and declare defeat. No. You return to the new state. You remind yourself, what I see now is not final. Reality is already rearranging itself behind the scenes. That is faith, not blind hope, but loyalty to the unseen reality you have accepted within yourself. You must understand that every loving relationship first exists in consciousness before it appears in physical form. Everything visible was once invisible. Everything experienced externally was once imagined internally. So never ask the world for permission to believe in your desire. Do not say, I will feel secure once they return. No, feel secure first, and their return becomes natural. The person who constantly checks for movement is still identified with lack. They are still serving appearances more than imagination. But the one who truly understands this law walks differently. Even while circumstances remain unchanged, they carry themselves with quiet certainty. They know something the outer world has not revealed yet, And because they know it inwardly, the bridge of events begins unfolding inevitably. You may not witness the movement immediately, but movement is occurring. Conversations are shifting. Emotions are shifting. Thoughts are shifting. Hearts are being softened in ways beyond your understanding. Many times, what appears impossible is already dissolving beneath the surface while you remain unaware of it. This is why persistence matters. Not forcing, not struggling, not obsessing. Persistence in the assumption, persistence in the feeling, persistence in the identity of already being loved. For the world eventually bows before sustained imagination. It has no choice. Reality must conform to the state you consistently occupy. And when you truly understand that circumstances do not matter, fear begins leaving your body. You stop worshiping delays. You stop magnifying obstacles. You stop treating temporary conditions as permanent truths. You begin walking through life with a calm assurance that no appearance possesses greater power than the consciousness within you that created it. And once fear begins to lose its hold over you, you are finally able to do what most people never truly dare to do, live from the wish fulfilled instead of merely hoping for it. This is the great secret. Not wishing harder, not begging more intensely, not convincing another person to love you, but entering inwardly into the state where your desire is already a fact. Most people remain trapped because they continue living in the middle. They acknowledge what they want, but emotionally they continue identifying with not having it. They say, I want commitment, while feeling abandoned. They say, I know we will be together, while constantly checking for proof. And so they remain divided within themselves. But consciousness only manifests what feels natural to you. You must become one with the fulfilled desire. Suppose tonight you no longer viewed yourself as someone waiting for reconciliation. Suppose instead you closed your eyes and entered the scene after the fulfillment, not the process, not the struggle, the end. Hear their voice telling you how grateful they are to have you. Feel their arms around you. Imagine the ease between you now. Imagine waking in the morning already secure in love, no longer wondering where you stand. This is not daydreaming. This is spiritual creation. The imaginal act, when felt deeply and accepted naturally, impresses itself upon the subconscious mind. And the subconscious, being the creative power within you, begins organizing external reality to mirror the inner experience. But you must understand something very important. Living in the end does not mean forcing yourself into excitement every moment of the day. It means resting inwardly in the assumption that what you desire is already yours. There is a difference. The person who knows they are loved does not panic every hour asking, is it working? They do not constantly seek reassurance. Why? Because possession has replaced longing. And this is the state you must enter. No longer the state of the abandoned one. No longer the state of the one trying desperately to manifest a message. But the state of the one who already experiences mutual love naturally. When you remain faithful to this state, something begins changing in your entire being. Your reactions soften. Your anxiety fades. You stop interpreting every circumstance negatively because inwardly you already know the outcome. This is why imagination must become more real to you than appearances. For many people, the visible world feels permanent while imagination feels like fantasy. Yet the visible world is only the delayed expression of former imaginal acts. What you call reality today was once invisible yesterday. So when you sit quietly and imagine your specific person lovingly present with you, you are not escaping reality. You are shaping it. Feel the reality of it. Do not merely observe the scene as though watching a film. Enter it, participate in it. Feel the naturalness of already being together. Hear the laughter. Hear the tenderness in their voice. Feel the relief of no longer fearing loss. The subconscious responds to feeling. And when the feeling becomes familiar, reality begins moving you toward its physical equivalent. Many people fail because they keep returning to the old state emotionally. They imagine lovingly for 10 minutes and then spend the rest of the day identifying with fear, rejection, and separation. They undo within themselves what they planted moments earlier. You cannot serve two states at once. If you desire reunion, then remain mentally faithful to reunion. If you desire love, remain faithful to being loved. If you desire commitment, remain faithful to already being chosen, not occasionally, persistently. And if doubts arise, do not fight them violently. Simply return to the end again and again, until it feels more natural than the old story. For the old story only survives through repetition. Withdraw your attention from it, and eventually it weakens. The new state strengthens through occupancy. The more often you return inwardly to the fulfilled desire, the more your entire identity begins conforming to it. You begin thinking differently without effort, speaking differently, carrying yourself differently. Even your energy changes because inwardly you are no longer waiting for love to happen someday. You have accepted it as present now. And the strange thing is this: the moment you stop emotionally chasing the future begins rushing toward you. For the world responds not to desperate wanting, but to embodied certainty. Reality always mirrors the state you most consistently live from within yourself. And as you continue dwelling in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you will notice another transformation taking place within you. The urge to chase begins disappearing. The constant need to force movement, seek validation, or control outcomes slowly fades away. Why? Because the moment something feels truly yours inwardly, desperation can no longer survive in the mind. No man runs anxiously after what he already possesses in consciousness. The one who feels insecure in love chases. The one who feels certain in love attracts. And this is the difference between living in lack and living in power. Most people, though they may not realize it, spend their days affirming absence. They watch the phone constantly. They analyze every delay. They replay conversations endlessly in mind. And beneath all of it is one silent belief: I may lose them. That assumption alone creates struggle. For consciousness does not respond merely to your spoken words. It responds to your dominant state. If your dominant state is fear of abandonment, then your actions, reactions, and energy become rooted in need. Even your love begins carrying tension within it. But love cannot flourish in desperation. You were never meant to beg for affection. You were meant to embody the state that naturally receives it. And so the question becomes, what are you embodying every day? Are you embodying the version of yourself who fears rejection, or the version who knows they are irreplaceable? You see, the person who knows their value does not need to manipulate another human being. They do not force messages. They do not plead for attention. There is a quiet magnetism about them because inwardly they are complete. This completeness is attractive, not arrogance, not pride, but inner security. When you truly accept yourself as worthy of extraordinary love, your energy changes without effort. Your words soften, your presence deepens, even your silence carries confidence because you are no longer emotionally starving for reassurance from the world. And the outer world feels this shift. People often think attraction is physical only, but the deepest attraction is energetic. It is the invisible atmosphere created by your self-concept. Others respond not only to your appearance, but to the assumptions you hold about yourself. If inwardly you feel unwanted, people unconsciously mirror that uncertainty back to you. If inwardly you feel chosen, valued, and unforgettable, people begin responding differently without understanding why. This is why you must stop identifying with the role of the abandoned one. That identity produces chasing. And chasing always says, I do not believe I am enough to naturally receive love. But the moment you accept yourself as the prize, not from ego, but from spiritual understanding, you stop pursuing affection from fear. You begin resting in the expectation that love comes toward you naturally. Consider the person who is deeply secure in a relationship. They are not spending every hour questioning where they stand. They are not interpreting every silence as rejection. Why? Because inwardly they already feel chosen. That inner assumption creates emotional stability, and stability is magnetic. The world is drawn toward those who no longer seek to force outcomes. There is something powerful about a person who remains inwardly peaceful despite appearances. Such a person radiates certainty, and certainty impresses itself upon reality. This is why you must stop saying, "How can I make them come back?" Instead ask, "What version of myself would naturally experience devotion without struggle?" Become that version inwardly. Walk as that version. Think as that version. Feel as that version. For you are always attracting according to your state of consciousness. If you remain identified with longing, you continue attracting situations that prolong longing. But if you identify with fulfillment, you begin attracting experiences that mirror fulfillment. And perhaps the greatest mistake people make is believing attraction means doing more outwardly. No. The deepest attraction occurs inwardly first. It begins in the silent acceptance that you are already worthy, already lovable, already chosen. Then the outer world begins reorganizing itself around this new concept of self. Messages begin arriving naturally. Conversations unfold effortlessly. Reconnection happens in ways that seem almost unbelievable. Not because you chased harder than before, but because you finally stopped affirming separation within yourself. The moment you no longer feel incomplete without another person, you become powerfully attractive to them. For need repels, but wholeness draws people near effortlessly. And so your task is not to run after love, but to become so inwardly aligned with being loved that reality itself begins bringing love toward you automatically. And yet, even after hearing these truths, many people unknowingly continue recreating the very pain they wish to escape through one subtle habit, their inner conversations. They may speak positively for a moment outwardly, but inwardly they continue arguing for their limitations every single day. The outer world does not hear these silent conversations, but consciousness hears them constantly. A person may smile in public while inwardly repeating, "They are losing interest. I am being ignored. They probably want someone else. It is too late for us." And then they wonder why reality continues reflecting distance and uncertainty back to them. But can you not see? These inner conversations are acts of creation. Every time you mentally rehearse rejection, you impress rejection upon the subconscious mind. Every fearful conversation held within yourself becomes a script the world eventually performs. You are always talking to yourself, about others, about life. And those conversations are not harmless. They are shaping your reality continuously. This is why you must become aware of what you are inwardly consenting to. Most people do not realize how often they imagine against themselves. They replay painful memories repeatedly. They mentally hear harsh words spoken again and again. They imagine arguments that have not even happened yet. And because imagination creates reality, these inner acts harden into experience. The mind becomes a theater in which they continually perform loss, abandonment, and disappointment. Then life reflects the play back to them. But the moment you understand this law, you begin taking authority over your inner speech. You stop allowing the mind to wander carelessly into fear. Instead, you deliberately begin constructing conversations that imply your wish is already fulfilled. Suppose your specific person has not contacted you. The old version of you immediately says inwardly, "Why are they silent? Why don't they care?" But the transformed version of you pauses and replaces the inner dialogue. "They think about me constantly. They miss hearing my voice. Our connection grows stronger every day. They feel naturally drawn to me. Do you feel the difference? One conversation creates separation, the other creates reunion. One reinforces fear, the other nourishes fulfillment. And because your subconscious accepts what is emotionally repeated, your dominant inner conversations eventually become external facts. You need not force these conversations with strain. That is not the secret. The secret is gentle persistence. Returning again and again to thoughts that imply love, harmony, and mutual devotion until they begin feeling natural. At first, the old thoughts may still appear. Do not become frightened by them. Old states echo for a while because they were practiced repeatedly. But every time you refuse to emotionally identify with them, they weaken. The mind is much like a garden. Whatever you water consistently grows stronger. If you water fear daily, fear flourishes. If you nourish love, security, and certainty, those states begin taking root instead. And as your inner conversations change, something remarkable begins happening outwardly. People start speaking to you differently. Circumstances shift subtly. Opportunities for reconnection emerge naturally. Even your specific person begins reflecting the assumptions you now hold within yourself. For no one can consistently play a role in your life that contradicts your dominant conception of them. If inwardly you continue hearing them reject you, distance remains. But if inwardly you begin hearing them adore you, appreciate you, long for you, then slowly the relationship begins reshaping itself around that inner speed. This is why you must become inwardly selective. Do not entertain conversations that oppose your desire. The world already contains enough noise without you adding more fear to it internally. Become loyal to the reality you wish to experience. Hear congratulations inwardly. Hear affection inwardly. Hear commitment inwardly. Before sleep, allow the mind to drift into conversations that would occur if your desire were already fulfilled. Hear them saying, "I never stop loving you." Hear them telling you how important you are to them. Hear the relief in their voice now that you are together again. These conversations impress the subconscious most deeply when accompanied by feeling, not mechanical repetition. Feeling. For the subconscious responds not merely to words, but to emotional acceptance. And eventually what began as an inner whisper becomes an outer fact. The conversations once heard only in imagination begin occurring in physical reality, almost word for word, because the world inevitably mirrors the dialogue you consistently sustain within yourself. And as these new conversations begin replacing the old ones, you arrive at the final transformation, the death of fear itself. For the greatest obstacle between you and the love you desire was never another person. It was the fear of losing love before fully receiving it. Most people enter relationships carrying silent terror within them. They fear abandonment. They fear replacement. They fear rejection. And because they fear these things so deeply, they unknowingly remain emotionally attached to the possibility of loss. Then, life mirrors the attachment. You cannot continually fear loss without emotionally identifying with it. And whatever you identify with inwardly eventually expresses itself outwardly in some form. This is why you must become the version of yourself who no longer fears losing love. Not because you have become cold, not because you no longer care, but because you finally understand your own creative power. The one who fears loss constantly watches for signs of danger. A delayed reply becomes rejection. A moment of distance becomes panic. Silence becomes proof that something is wrong. Their entire emotional world depends upon external behavior remaining perfect at all times. But no person can remain peaceful while worshipping appearances. The transformed version of you no longer lives that way. You begin understanding that your security does not come from another person's temporary actions. It comes from your state of consciousness. You understand now that the outer world reflects you. Therefore, instead of fearing loss outwardly, you correct the inner state from which loss once emerged. And this changes everything. For the person who no longer fears abandonment moves differently through life. They are calmer, softer, more grounded. There is no desperate grasping in them because inwardly they already feel complete. Such a person becomes deeply magnetic. Do you know why certain people seem unforgettable? It is not always appearance, it is not always words. It is often the quiet certainty they carry within themselves. They are not mentally begging to be chosen. They already believe they are worthy of being chosen. And the world responds to that belief. You must reach the point where you no longer say, "What if they leave?" Instead, you naturally feel, "Love remains with me because I am valuable, lovable, and unforgettable." That assumption alone transforms your entire reality. For the fearful mind pushes love away through tension. It clings. It doubts. It overreacts. It searches constantly for reassurance because it secretly believes loss is inevitable. But the secure mind rests. And what rests in confidence attracts effortlessly. You see, The outer relationship can only become stable when the inner self becomes stable first. If you remain inwardly convinced that love disappears, then even beautiful moments become overshadowed by anxiety. You cannot fully enjoy love while secretly preparing for abandonment. So you must release the identity of the person who is always left behind. That version of you belongs to an old state. A state built from painful assumptions, old memories, disappointments, and fear. But you are not condemned to remain in that state forever. You can step out of it now. You can decide this very moment. I am no longer the person who fears rejection. I am no longer the person who expects loss. I am no longer the person who doubts their worth. And as you persist in this new identity, your emotional world begins healing. You stop reacting so violently to appearances because inwardly you already know who you are. You are chosen, you are valued, you are deeply loved. Not someday, now. And when this becomes natural to you, your relationships begin reflecting emotional security instead of emotional struggle. Your specific person feels safer around you because you are no longer radiating fear. Conversations become lighter because desperation has dissolved. Love flows more naturally because you are no longer mentally resisting it through anxiety. You become emotionally free. And strangely enough, it is often at this stage, when you no longer cling desperately to the outcome, that the relationship begins unfolding most beautifully. Because the energy of fear has finally been replaced by certainty. Not forced certainty, quiet certainty. The kind that no longer asks, every day will it happen? The kind that simply knows. And the person who truly knows they are loved no longer lives as someone trying to hold on to love with trembling hands. They live as someone who understands that what is meant for them is continually drawn toward them through the power of the state they faithfully occupy within themselves. Tonight, stop searching for signs. Stop asking whether they will come back. Instead, become inwardly convinced that the love you desire is already yours. Walk as though you are chosen. Think as though you are loved. Feel as though the reunion has already happened. Because according to Neville Goddard, imagination creates reality. And the moment you persist in the assumption that your specific person belongs in your life, the universe begins moving them back to you in ways you cannot yet see. They are not drifting away from you. They are being drawn back to the version of you that finally understands their power.